Well, I promise I didn't set that up, but that's really a perfect segue for our talk about the P4 study, which is about postpartum women, and we've already talked about Lauren's family. Many of you will have heard bits and pieces about the P4 study. It stands for Postpartum Physiology, Psychology and Paediatric Follow-up Study, so 4 Ps there. And I'm talking on behalf of the group, and it's affiliated with UNSW, George obviously, and UTS as well. And their little logo up in the top right-hand corner, probably can't read it, but it has the 4 Ps up there as well. So why are we doing it? Cardiovascular disease, so strokes and heart attacks, is the leading cause of death of women in the Western world, and if you've had high blood pressure in pregnancy, as we've already heard, you have a 2 to 3 times risk of later cardiovascular disease. Mark said there are 300,000 births per year in Australia, and 10% of those will have high blood pressure, so that's 30,000 women a year who are at increased risk, and there's no way that you can actually screen 30,000 women a year. They're also at increased risk of blood clots, diabetes, kidney disease, and have poorer psychological disorders. And Lynn also mentioned that the outcomes of babies that are actually being poorly studied, and the long-term effects of the blood pressure treatment, although they've been around for a long time, are not really well studied. So the mere fact that you're diagnosing hypertension in pregnancy provides a unique opportunity to identify a group of women who are at later risk of cardiovascular disease and do things to try and reduce their long-term risk. And that came as a quote from our unsuccessful NH and MRC grant. So just to introduce you to the study group, I'm an obstetrician, Lynn's a midwife, and is also doing her PhD through UTS on the psychological component of this. George Mangos is going to be talking to you shortly. He is, like Mark and Francisca, a renal and obstetric medicine physician. Amanda is the other obstetrician in the study. Francisca you've met. Caroline Homer used to be at St George and is a professor of midwifery from UTS. Tony O'Sullivan is an endocrinologist, so looks after all the endocrinology side of it. Maria Craig is a paediatrician at St George and also at the Sydney Children's Hospital. Sam Harvey is a psychiatrist at St George, but also works at the Black Dog Institute at Prince of Wales. And Mark, you've already met. I don't think I'm talking about anything else. There we go. So we're looking at postpartum women. We're looking at their physiology, their psychology, and the babies as well. So it's a follow-up study at 6 months postpartum, and it's still not working. Okay. Now we're comparing normotensive and hypertensive pregnancies, and they are repeated at 2 and 5 years. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to define what is normal at 6 months after birth, because we really don't know that. I mean, most of the blood pressure, for instance, that we use, 140 or 90s on sort of white, old-haired males, white-haired old males, like Mark and I. And we're comparing women with who had high blood pressure in pregnancy with those that had normal blood pressure. Do they have more psychological problems? And are their babies more at risk of physical and developmental problems? Who do we include? So you have to have a live baby in the past 6 months. You have to have a good understanding of written and spoken English because of the psychological testing we do. But also you have to get informed consent, which is pretty hard to do if you don't understand English, and we don't have the facilities to do any translating. You're excluded if you've got an underlying disease like hypertension or kidney disease. Multiple pregnancies are out, congenital anomalies in the baby, and if they're pregnant again, which happens very, very frequently. So we plan to recruit 300 normal women, 100 with preeclampsia and 80 with gestational hypertension. And so what Lynn does is, if they're on the ward still, she gives them the information and consent form and makes an appointment for their assessment. If they've gone home during the weekend and she hasn't actually met them, she'll mail them and get them to ring in. And if they have been hypertensive, she will actually ring them and make contact. At 6 months, we do the physiological testing. So they have a blood pressure done manually and also a 24-hour monitor. We measure their body composition and energy expenditure. They have an appointment made to have a cardiac echocardiogram, and they have bloods and urine taken as well. They fill out 4 scales when they arrive, so looking at depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, and mother-infant bonding. The babies they're physically examined by a paediatrician at 6 months, 2 and 5 years, and their development is assessed by this ages and stages questionnaire, which the mother fills out prior to her visit, and they get seen by a clinical psychologist at 2 and 5 years. This is our recruitment graph, recently updated by Lynn, much to her and my delight. So we started recruiting in the early part of 2013, and she's seen 240 normal women, so remember we're aiming for 300. She's seen 66 with preeclampsia, we're aiming for 100, and only 17 with GH, and there are a whole lot of reasons why we're not getting those, and I think we'll go on recruiting after the study's finished, but we'll probably aim just to get the 100 PEs, and hoping that towards the end of next year we'll be close to that. This is a bit complicated, this slide. This is looking up to the 16th of May this year, so there were 314 6-month assessments made, and of those, 287 had completed a 24-hour blood pressure monitor. And you'll see there are 3 groups. So there's 214 normotensive, 16 with GH, and 57 with PE. And the other side, looking at the number of those that had abnormal blood pressure, and you'll see 4% in the normotensive group, so those the women that were normotensive in pregnancy, 13%, so it was raised in those that had gestational hypertension, but even more raised, so 1 in 4 of the women who had preeclampsia had an abnormal blood pressure. So it's much higher than people expect. So in summary, it's a follow-up study of women and their babies at 6 months after birth, and then we're checking them at 2 and 5 years, looking at the physiological and psychological health of the mothers and the health and development of their babies. We're defining what is normal at 6 months, and we're comparing women who had normal blood pressure in pregnancy with those that had high blood pressure. And we're hoping very soon to also be including in this, looking at the microbiome, so what's in both the mother's and the baby's gut. And our helper in collecting the samples, I won't tell you what we normally call her, is actually here with us today, and it's interesting that St George, the new professor of medicine, Emad El-Omar, is an expert in the microbiomes, and so we are hoping to also include that as part of our study in the future and start a new big study following women through pregnancy and looking at these things, but also looking at the microbiome as well of them and their babies. Thank you.